Hello guys. After learning about the history and culture of Singapore, here we are now learning about the Singapore and how its state is built. So here are the main points that you learn along the way. The political organization, political limitation, the maintenance of power, the judiciary, and the democratic challenge. Here is a famous quote from Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, who is the most prominent figure in Singapore. He is an agent for he transitioned Singapore from a third world struggling country to becoming a first class country. So starting with the topic, here I'll give you some facts about Singapore. Singapore marks 55th year of independence in 2020. It has a low corruption index perception rating, and Singapore's dominant party, which is the People's Action Party, is a major conservative center-right political party in Singapore. And the current Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, son of former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. So first topic is the political organization. Singapore's political consistency has continued regardless of changes going on around it, marking it as one of the most politically stable, if politically limited, countries in the world. The only change that can be discerned in its political orientation is away from its non-aligned and socialist-oriented status in its first years, towards a closer strategic relationship with the United States, including the training of Singaporean military personnel and supply of arms, and an open capitalist economy, if led in many instances by state-owned industries. The incorporation of Singapore into Malaysia in 1963 had been opposed by both Indonesian and the Philippines, as well as by Singapore's own socialist front, Barisan Socialist or BS. Lee campaigned in part on a platform that said, "What a vote for the Barisan is a vote for Sukarno." However, after the elections, there were serious tensions in the relationship between Singapore and the rest of Malaysia. Lee insisted on using the title Prime Minister, which irked non-Singaporean Malaysians whose Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman, resided in Kuala Lumpur. Lee further led aspiration on the part of the PAP to achieve government in Kuala Lumpur. This was the beginning of what became Malaysia's primary opposition party, the Singapore. In tensions between Singapore and the rest of Malaysia, there was a long-standing fear among ethnic Malays that the inclusion of Singapore into the federation would help to establish an ethnic Chinese majority in Malaysia. It could not, as only 42% of Malaysians at that time were ethnic Chinese. In July 1964, events began to come to a head, with Chinese-Malay riots in Singapore. Over the course of 3 days, at least 23 people were killed, with a further 454 injured. Lee later blamed UMNO for being behind the riots to gather Malay support in Singapore and to consolidate support to UMNO on the peninsula. There were further clashes in August. Lee blamed UMNO for behind the riots. The Malaysian Prime Minister tried consolidating with Lee Kuan Yew, but there are no progress with the arrangements that was suitable for Singapore was not suitable for Malaysia and vice versa. After ordering financial arrangement for its central bank on August 9, 1965, Lee Kuan Yew announced in an emotional speech that Singapore had separated itself from Malaysia. At the same time, a similar and irrevocable announcement was made in Kuala Lumpur. Going to the Singapore's political limitation. As early as 1960, Lee Kuan Yew had indicated that he did not think that democracy, in the conventional sense of one person, one vote, was suitable for developing countries, within which he included Singapore. He said that he believed for a government. To at least give the impression it was effective, it must be seen as enduring. In this sense, an effective government, according to Lee, could not be subject to the vagaries of the electoral process. So here we can see the dirty works of the PAP, which they imprisoned one of their political opponents, prompting them to withdraw from the election or the political game, and also it paved a way for their dominance in the country. From 1965, the PAP increased its use of the intelligence apparatus to watch the opposition. The following year, when Chia Tai-po was elected as a candidate for Barisan Socialist, he accused the ruling PAP of harassing BS leaders. In response, Chia was arrested and jailed under the Internal Security Act until 1989. Even then, he was held under house arrest on Sentosa Island for a further 2 years and was thereafter banned from writing or publishing, traveling overseas without government permission, or belonging to any organization. Following the arrest of the detention of Chia, the BS withdrew from the parliamentary process, citing the impossibility of participating in the political environment, while the PAP exercised regressive measures against duly elected members. PAP dominated the political landscape since 1967 up to 1981. PAP held the majority of the seats, while it is open to debate whether the PAP under Lee government in interest of all Singaporeans. It is true that Singapore did achieve remarkable economic development under his rule.